What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on Rotogrinders. Happy to be back with you talking some golf. Last week's tournament is finally over. Could have still been going as of the time we're taping this, the way it started. But the Players' Championship week finally concluded after a chaotic couple of days. Cam Smith takes home the hardware and another victory. And so we got plenty of stuff to get to here over the next 45 minutes to an hour. As usual, I am Justin Van Zuiden, aka STL Cardinals 84. I will be hosting the show for you. Thank those of you who are watching us live on YouTube. And if you want to chat with us during the show, you can go to our free Rotogrinders Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord, or find the links through the homepage, but the direct access, rotogrinders.com/Discord. And we are in the live stream chat channel for this show. Generally get good back and forth throughout the show. So check that out. You don't have to be a premium subscriber, just a Rotogrinders member in order to access that Discord channel. You might be wondering, why are there three of you here this week? So we have a special guest. I would be remiss if I did not introduce him first. So we've got Brian Kirschner on the show with us this week. I will let Brian have the floor to introduce himself. And Brian, welcome. And those of the folks out there listening that might not know who you are, why don't you give them a little background and tell them where they can find you?
Of course. I really appreciate you guys having me on tonight. I'm very much looking forward to the show. I think the Florida swing has been really fun. And I think that a lot of the courses have been really interesting. And it's great to not have a lot of just pure birdie fests and like really tough events coming up. So I put out golf content, golf betting content, golf DFS content. I have a podcast, Tappin' Birdie. I have a guest on every week. We talk through the betting board. We talk through our favorite outright bets, positional bets, DFS plays. And I love me some single entries, playing the $100 and the $200 single entry every single week on DFS for PGA. So I'm a big fan of the show. So I'm excited to join you guys tonight.
Awesome. Well, happy to have you with us as well. And your Twitter handle, if the people want to find you on the Twitter machine.
Yeah, just Brian Kirschner _ I wish I didn't have the underscore there, but some random dude has it. So I just got to settle for the Brian Kirschner _
See, so that's why I got the 84 after my STL Cardinals. I went with the birth year. I don't know if that makes me a square or what. You just went with the old underscore, but you get the same result. The old, the handles without all the extra stuff, those come at a premium. So anyway, welcome aboard. Happy to have you with us tonight. And of course, we've got Noto as well, aka Derek Farnsworth. I'm feeling a little left out. Noto took down 20K a couple weeks ago. RG boss Dan Bach took down 20K last week. I said I'd settle for $20. We'll see if I get that this week. Who knows? But Noto, how you been?
Yeah, doing good. Also a part of the underscore crew on Twitter. So you got some company there. And I'm just trying to figure out what day it is. My whole world revolves around the golf schedule. So it just feels weird with the tournament ending on a Monday. But overall fun event other than, the weather delays and all the madness that went on. But fun event at the Players.
Yeah, I ended up with a majority of my player pool having the right side of the weather draw totally by happenstance. I just decided to play it straight up and ended up with a lot of guys that made the cut and nobody that finished better than 12th. So I guess that left me with a lot of min cash lineups, which in the top heavy GPPs, you min cash a ton of lineups, you still end up losing a little bit of money. And that was my week last week. So nothing special to write home about, but it was a wild tournament. I mean, they didn't get through the first round until Saturday. We saw all sorts of balls in the water on 17 when they picked up because Saturday was very windy. So if you ended up out there for your full second round on Saturday, it was about a 2.5, 3-stroke disadvantage for those guys. And I believe the only player after that wave was over that made the cut inside the top 15 was Doug Gim. Of course, the week I didn't have any interest in Doug Gim. He was the only guy from that wave that was in the top 15 after the cut. But, just one of those tournaments. I mean, the DFS Twitter was going nuts just about the draw advantage ended up not being the side that we thought it was going to be. And Brian, what else did you take away from that craziness last week?
Yeah, I thought the wave advantage was really interesting. It was a nice little like case study. Like, I don't know how you would have predicted that. Like, it was just everything got pushed back so much more than expected. Like, you can look at the weather and see where it's going to be, but you don't know how the tournament organizers are going to handle it and how long they're going to delay it. Therefore, it kind of flipped on its head. But yeah, I mean, the wave advantage was huge. And I think that the guys that, didn't have the preferred tee times, obviously they didn't really play well and it didn't really show. But I have in my notes for next year, just play Doug Ghim at the Players no matter what, because this is his course. I love, it was a great feel-good story that he actually played well on Sunday. Everyone remembers him being paired with JT in the final group last year when JT went on to run and he shot like a 78. Comes out, plays well, finishes in the top 10. So it was a nice finish from Doug Ghim, and I'm glad he played well.
Yeah, I had played him about 53 of the previous 52 weeks, so I was disappointed that I didn't stay on board last week. That's what I get. That's what I get for going away from my man Doug Ghim, fellow Illinois native. So good for him. I'm happy for him as well. Noto, other thoughts for you from last week?
Yeah, Justin's our resident Doug Ghim truther. So it's sad that you didn't play any last week. But yeah, my takeaways, Cam Smith, man, he's got some stones on him. Some of the shots that he hit, some of the putts that he made. If he's in contention, man, he's going to be there right till the end. So that was fun to watch. It was interesting to see, Berger get into it with Hovland and who was it? Joel Damon there on that drop. I don't know if you guys saw the PGA Tour live video of that. That was interesting. That's the second time Joel Damon's been involved in one of those, little arguments. I think Sun King a few years back, they got into it at the Quicken. And then, like you guys mentioned, I don't think we should try to predict the weather. It seems like 95% of the time there looks to be an advantage. It just doesn't work out the way you think, whether the weather doesn't come into play at all or whether it ends up being in reverse of what you think. So my advice moving forward, if there does look to be bad weather, just build stacks on both sides and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it was a very interesting conversation between Hovland and Damon and Berger, and it's really hard to tell from the video that was shown, but I don't necessarily think that Berger was wrong based on the flight of the ball. Might have ended up, crossing somewhere in between where they had him drop and where he thought he was going to drop, or, where he originally was going to drop, but it was really interesting to see people taking such definitive sides based on, the video clip and the shot tracer.
A lot of our friends around the industry were posting all kinds of graphics and stuff. That was pretty fun on Twitter, but I kind of agree with you. And it's weird because Berger, he was famous for going over to Patrick Reed that one tournament. He walked like 100 yards across the fairway to make sure he didn't have an illegal drop. So, yeah, it was just weird. You don't see that very often. So they must have had a pretty strong stance on it that he was taking the bad drop. So I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think that like Hovland and Damon, since they're such likable, energetic, charismatic guys, like they just kind of got like the benefit of the doubt in the situation. People are like, oh, well, these guys are like fun and goofy. So like it's like these guys are professional players. And and I think the fact that Berger has always been known as someone that's very strictly by the rules and kind of like a cop, like he's not gonna to give himself a bad drop, like he said. But I mean, no one was there. We don't know. But I do think it was funny how it was just very easy to take the side of Hovland and Damon just because of their personalities.
Yeah. I think that, that's naturally where you gravitate towards it. Is kind of what everybody thought. And then, I don't know, you look at the footage, it's pretty unclear, but trying to figure out, and say definitive one way or the other, just based on the TV angle where you clearly can't see exactly where it crosses the line of the hazard, but it was funny to see, so definitive, the arguments on both sides, but it was an interesting debate for social media for sure. So, all right, let's go ahead and pivot our focus forward here. We've got the Valspar Championship this week, and keep your eyes to the news here over the next 36 hours or so, because with the late finish of the Players Championship, wouldn't be surprised if some other guys just cite, fatigue or happen to come with an illness or something and just say, you know what, I don't want to tee it up this week, so I'm going to withdraw. And that has happened with quite a few players here so far. The most notable would be today's field changes, which would be Doug Gim and Paul Casey, both withdrew. There were a lot of them that took place on Monday, but that was before the sites released the pricing for this week. So most of the field is going to be good, particularly if you're looking on DraftKings, but Casey is out, Gim is out, and Sebastian Munoz is also out. So those are the three guys you might see in the player pools that you want to make sure you don't roster. Casey would have been one of the more popular plays of the week for sure. So make sure you don't click those players into your lineups. Noto, what do we got for a course this week?
I think Casey withdrew. He's still tilting over that lie he drew on that par 5. That was pretty brutal. It's weird golf rules that you can't get a free drop from that in the middle of the fairway. But a sprinkler head anyway. So Copperhead this week, it's a last leg of the Florida stretch, par 71, over 7,300 yards. It's getting a little bit unique in that it's got 4 par 5s and 5 par 3s. And it's a little bit different than most of the Florida courses. You're going to see tree-lined fairways. You're going to see some elevation changes. You haven't seen that the last few weeks. A lot of the golfers kind of compare it to more of a Carolinas style of course. A lot of dog legs as well, and very narrow fairways. So not going to see a ton of drivers hit this week. Average driving distance way down compared to tour average. And because of that, you're just going to see, not a huge emphasis on distance. You just want to kind of keep it in play. Accuracy with the irons, especially the mid to long irons, is going to be very important this week. And then the greens, they're tough to hit on average, about 6% tougher than your regular course on the PGA Tour. So scrambling is going to be critical as well. Overall, just looking at strong tee to green guys. We have seen some bad putters play well here in the past. If Paul Casey can win here, pretty much any bad putter probably can win here. So strong tee to green for me. And yeah, just mid to long iron play, bogey avoidance, probably going to be, top 15 in difficulty this year, depending on the weather. And that does look like it's going to be pretty windy on Friday.
All right, Brian, what are you looking at as far as the course here this week?
I definitely agree. And what I think is very interesting about this week is that it's a little bit tougher because the sample size of winners is a lot smaller than other weeks, because we have Sam Burns winning last year, and he didn't necessarily do it with his ball striking. He gained like 8 strokes putting, so he really putted really well. We have the COVID year, so no winner. And then we have Paul Casey winning twice, and then we have Adam Hadwin. So it's like usually in an event where we have Paul Casey in a COVID year, we have 2 more winners, where it'd be a lot more easy to parse out exactly what it takes to win here. But I think my biggest thing this week is going to be proximity with these long irons. There are just so many approach shots that are going to be coming over 175 yards. And, that kind of checks out because Paul Casey's won here twice. He's an absolutely excellent long iron player. That's what he does really, really well. So again, I'm really very much looking at proximity and approach numbers with these long irons. And then you don't have to, bomb it out there. You kind of have to work it both ways off the tee and just keep it in the fairway. And I think that's why you see a lot longer approach shots, because it kind of takes driver out of your hands on a couple of holes. Scrambling, obviously, always going to be important. And bogey avoidance, obviously, it's going to be a difficult test. I predict the winning score will be about 14 or 15 under. I don't think we get to that Sam Burns number, but I don't think it will necessarily play as hard as when Paul Casey won it. So bogey avoidance, proximity with these long irons, par 5 scoring, again, kind of ties into it, but scoring on long par 3s, there's going to be a lot of those. So I'm excited for these weeks, and that's what I'm definitely looking at.
Yeah, this is also kind of a unique, course setup. It's another course that you often see it, if it's windy, the scores are going to be difficult. Last year, the weather was pretty benign here, so that's why you saw maybe better scoring conditions than what we had seen in years past. And it's also a par 71 layout that's a little bit different from your traditional with 4 par 5s and 5 par 3s. So there's no, and that's, you mentioned the long par 3s. You've got one of them on the front that's 235 yards. The 15th hole and the 13th hole are both right around 200 yards. 17's 215. So long par 3s, there's 5 par 3s on this course and only 9 par 4s. So Just another angle to look at, looking at that par 3, par 5 scoring, maybe taking a little bit more importance with the way that this course is designed. So, all right, let's go ahead and start digging into the golfers. Then this week, we get the usual pricing structure, and frankly, a stronger field than I would have expected after last week's event dragged into Monday. And I think the top 20 priced golfers on DraftKings were all in last week's field, and most of them made the cut. So again, wouldn't be surprised if we saw another withdrawal or two, but generally speaking, a strong field. So Brian, I'll stay with you and let you have your first crack with the top golfers here. Who's standing out for you among those golfers priced above 10K on DraftKings?
I would assume it'd be very popular, but I think it's really Victor Hovland or bust for me at the top of the board this week. I mean, you just look at his approach numbers and just how good he is tee to green recently, and his starts at Bay Hill, ways like he's just been playing really, really well. And when you look at he's second in proximity and from over 200 yards, second in par 5 scoring, fifth in good drives gained. Like, he's just a complete tee to green machine at 10-8. I think it's a really great place to start your lineup, but I'm not playing anyone else above $10,000 other than Victor Hovland. I'm really putting all my eggs in one basket here.
Yeah, I like Hovland as well. I think he's the top play up there for sure. I'll sneak in some Schauffele in my tournament lineups. Right now we have him under 10% in projected ownership. And for those of you who are trying to find that, if you're watching live, if you are a premium subscriber, we've had some issues getting it loaded into Lineup HQ. With the last week's tournament bleeding into this week has caused some technical glitches on the back end. So, but the article is up that has all the golfers' projected ownership in it, so you can access it in basically grid form there. And so we've got Schauffele coming in at under 10%. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, he was a disaster last week, but he got stuck on the bad side of the weather draw. And he didn't play bad in the first round until coming back out for those final few holes after the long weather delay and the heavy wind. And I'm not going to hold that against him at all. You look at the form prior to last week, it was fine. So with the bias kicking in against Schauffele and the fact that he doesn't have the course history here as some of the other golfers, that's going to keep him low owned this week. So I like him in tournaments. But Hovland, my favorite overall as well. So Noto, where are you looking at the top?
Yeah, it's hard to make a case against Hovland. I mean, he gained 14.2 strokes ball striking last week. One of the more impressive, accomplishments that we've seen this year on the PGA Tour. And he finished top 10 despite losing like 4 or 5 strokes on and around the green. So you never know what to expect with this short game, but the ball striking is definitely going to be there. So no issues with that. I do like JT a little bit. I kind of think of him as the better version of Paul Casey in that he's very good tee to green. He's better around the green than Hovland. Pretty much than anyone in this 10K range. He's a lot better around the green. He just kind of comes down to that putter. And he played so well in that bad draw too. Some of the shots that he was hitting on the day that was really bad. It was fun to watch. He was fighting it. And so it kind of seems like he could be due for a breakout week. And then like you mentioned, Xander and Morikawa, I mean, they both missed the cut. Are you guys buying into that angle at all, that they didn't have to go out and play, 54 holes over the last or 36 holes over the last day and a half, a little extra rest?
There's some of the few. I mean, most of these guys that are in the field this week did make the cut. Brooks would be another one who didn't, golfers towards the top, but I certainly don't think it hurts not having to play all those rounds in that, and bleeding into late Monday. So.
Yeah, they're not my favorite from a projection standpoint. I like JT and Hovland more, but I think it's interesting at least.
I mean, is this the guy that Hovland's going to be forever, like the best tee to green player on the planet? And, if he ever figures out the short game, I mean, he'd be a runaway every week.
Yeah, all I was thinking about on that Monday finish, I was like, if you could just combine Hovland's ball striking with Cam Smith's putting and around the green game, like, you legitimately could not be a better golfer. So I really like the contrast of Cam Smith just getting everything up and down, making every single putt. And it's like we've seen with Hovland recently, it's like that's what he can do. And, obviously Cam was great on approach last week, but he really struggled off the tee. But it didn't matter when you make every 10-footer.
Yeah, put them together in the Zurich Classic or whatever, and then just let them walk away with the hardware. Ryan Palmer will have a say about that. He's got to get paired up with somebody. All right, not the Zurich Classic show, not the Zurich Classic. All right, let's go ahead and move into
no DJ talk. Looks like he's going to be pretty popular.
He was like 9 under on the final round, so that's, I mean, if everybody's looking at that, 22 birdies, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm not on him, but it scares me to fade him.
Yeah, I think JT was the ultimate example of just an amazing DFS play last week. And it didn't really come into fruition until Monday, but he was low owned. And it just like, if you're going to get DJ at single digit ownership, like you just play him, you hold your nose and you play him. And it worked out in the end because he just had an unbelievable finish Monday. And it worked out for a lot of people, I'm sure.
That's Shoffley this week. At least I hope so. We'll see. We got him at 9% right now. I think he's the guy for me. All right, let's move into that next range. Brian, I'll go back to you. Again, we don't have Casey here at 9,500. He's withdrawn. But we've got Lowry coming off a good week. We've got Hatton. We've got Burns in here. And then, you get to the lower end of the 9K range. You got Brooks and Answer and Kokrak. So, again, still fairly deep field. Who are you looking at in the 9Ks here?
My absolute favorite DFS play this week is Shane Lowry at $9,700. And like we were talking about the 10 before, and I was saying Hovland or bust, I'm actually differentiating myself a little bit by starting some lineups with Lowry and getting 2 guys in the 9s and going from there, not having to go much into the 6s. But I absolutely love Shane Lowry this week. Obviously, had a really great finish at Honda. Finish in the top 20 last week. 7th in bogey avoidance, 14th in this proximity range over the past 24 rounds and over 200 yards. 3rd in approach. So I'm really looking for in-form approach players and just ball strikers that have been playing well in Florida. He fits the build. He's going to be in every single lineup for me. And I'm hoping his ownership is, I would say, below 15%. He's not being super talked up in the betting market, but I'd really like to see where his ownership comes in. But I think differentiating myself by starting in the 9s would be a way for me to play him. But he's my absolute favorite play this week.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone's going to see Lowry at 9,700 and get that old sticker shock and not want to, Shane Lowry at 9,700, not playing that. So I think that's a really interesting angle given the way that, he comes in here with a runner-up finish that could have been a win at the Honda and a solid all-around week last week and a hole-in-one on 17. So, Noto, your thoughts on the 9K range here?
I also like starting in the 9K range, especially for single entry, because like you mentioned, those 6Ks, we're going to talk about them, but probably not for very long. They're not very good. So I like starting with Louis Oosthuizen. I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to this guy. If you don't count the WDs, he hasn't missed a cut on the PGA Tour since November of 2020, which is pretty crazy. He's got an excellent track record in Florida. Kind of fell apart on Monday at the Players, but he's played here. He's for the last 5 years. T16 or better every single time. I did bet him, and so I'm sure he's going to come in second. So I'll take that from a DFS perspective. But yeah, I like starting with Louis. Don't mind the Lowry call at all, especially if it gets a little windy, which it does look like it's going to be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. He's one of those guys that the worse the weather gets, the better you expect him to play. So I like that call. And then in the lower range, I'll go back to Fitzpatrick. He was in the wrong side of the draw. He lost 3 strokes putting. That was his 3rd worst putting performance in his career, which is pretty crazy. And he almost battled back and made the cut. So I'll go back to Fitz. And then, there's a lot of interesting plays. I don't mind Answer. He's a guy that tends to play better on these, precision tracks. Kokrak's got a really good track record here as well. So a lot of interesting plays here.
Yeah, you can. Fitzpatrick shot well above the wave average in that tough weather draw. He just didn't play well in the first round, and ended up falling just short of making the cut. But his brother's in the field too, if you want to play that narrative this week. So they're Fitzpatrick, Alex is in the field too. So
I was wondering that it's his brother, younger brother.
Yeah,
I assume.
Yeah.
Right.
Googled that before the show to confirm, but I was hoping they'd be paired together, but they're not. So who knows?
What about
Maybe
Chase? Is Chase here?
I don't think so. I don't think
That'd be
so.
a great lineup, like Vin Price, Chase, and Alex, and then those two. That'd be a really good, nice family lineup. That'd be a good build.
Get all the bros together in the lineup. Kokrak is the guy that caught my attention as well, like the course history. And really, he's not getting the attention that he did back last fall. I mean, he's made 9 cuts in a row. The upside has faded just a bit, but the form has still been, decent overall. And the last 3 years, top 15 finishes at this event. So I like him at 9,200. He's my favorite in that range. Anything else you like above 9,000 there, Brian?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on Kokrak. I'm a little bit concerned about his ownership because I think people are just going to look at his finishes and say, I'm going to play this guy. And I think it really checks out that Kokrak has excelled on this course because he's excellent with his long irons. He's really good on club down courses. And I like him in difficult conditions always. He won at Houston. That was a very tough event. So I think Kokrak checks a lot of boxes. I'd be curious to see where his ownership would be. But again, if I'm starting my lineups in this range, I think Lowry Kokrak is definitely going to be something I'm going to play.
Like it a lot. All right, let's go ahead and move into the mid-range here. We get to the 8,000 range. You've got some of the veterans in here. Gary Woodland finally let me down after the back-to-back top 5, so we can deboard the Woodland train. That got in good for a couple weeks, but back to the inconsistency with Gary Woodland. But you got Day and Watson and Webb Simpson in here, just the old veterans that have been around for a while that maybe aren't playing quite as well as they did in their primes, and you're getting a little bit of a discount on them. So, Noto, I'll go to you first on this 8K range. Who you liking the best in here?
I like Alex Noren quite a bit. Always been known for his short game. Look at his numbers recently. He's gained 16 strokes on approach in his last 5 events. Really good last week at the Players with the irons. And if you look at his numbers from this event last year, he gained 6.4 strokes with the short game. So if he can match everything up, I think he's interesting. And then my very first bet of the week was Keegan Bradley, first round leader. The last 5 trips here, 1st, 6th, 7th, 6th, and 1st after the first round. Now, this is where the term going full Keegan came from. He was in first and missed the cut. So we got that going for us. And man, watching him in that final round, he was walking in 30-footers. I've never seen him so confident with the flat stick. Granted, he finished bogey and then double. That was a little disappointing. But, yeah, I like Keegan quite a bit. He'll probably be popular. Yeah, it looks like he's going to be 20%. But I like him. And then at the bottom of the range, I'm going to go with Tringali over Russell Knox. Tringali's been all over the place. You never know what to expect from him, but when he does make the cut, he's got a lot of upside. Finished 3rd here last year. And his biggest weakness has been off the tee. So I'm hoping less than driver course, he can not lose 8 strokes off the tee.
A bold statement there, going for the not losing 8 strokes off the tee. We shall see it.
Just lose 3 or something. You know?
I was able to pull up the 2016 leaderboard. This is the year that happened with Keegan Bradley. They've still got the shot tracker data for 2016 on the website. I didn't think it would go back that far, but 67 in the first round and 79 in the second round to miss the cut. And the 79, he only lost 0.3 of a stroke putting. So I don't know what the tee to green numbers were that day, but they were pretty ugly. But the striking thing, the top 4 from that event were Charles Schwartzel, Bill Haas, Ryan Moore, and Lee McCoy. The more you know, 2016 Valspar Championship. Anyway, Brian, your thoughts on the 8K range?
I am so relieved that I didn't have to come on here and have to sell someone on Tringali, because I wrote him up and I was like, people are going to absolutely hate this play, but I just think from a pure ownership standpoint, he is not going to garner much ownership, and I think a lot of the guys around him are. So I think it's a great play in that regard. And when you look at his finishes, he tends to play well in very difficult conditions. 2nd at Zozo, that was very tough. 7th at Houston, 3rd at Farmers, 13th at Genesis. Like, I know he missed the last 2 cuts, but I just think that I'm going to play him at a very much of a discount, and I'm playing him where his game is suited and he has really good course history. came in the top 5 last year. Other people in that 8K range that I like, I'm going to have to agree with you on Noren as well. I think that his iron play has just been so outstanding recently, and he hasn't been putting, which is usually a strong suit. So I think he's going to match the two this week. And again, Noren's been playing some really excellent golf, dating back to like Waste Management. So I think Noren's a great play. Curious to see where his ownership ends up, but I'm definitely Tringali and Noren. I'm going to have to agree with you there in the 8s for me.
Yeah, Tringali, really interesting. I was curious to hear what the takes were going to be on him this week after the 3 missed cuts his last 4 starts. So we'll see where the pulse trends on him heading up to Thursday. There are some plays in this range that I think are interesting. I mean, we talked about Webb Simpson last week, and I was on him a little bit last week. That did not go well, even though he was on the plus side of the weather draw. So he had a terrible miscut despite being on the right side of the draw. So that's a little bit concerning. But Noto, anything else on this range before we move on?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Knox is going to be popular. He's been ball striking. He's got some good course history. Don't know what to do with him just yet. Then you got like Jason Day, Bubba Watson, guys that you just don't feel good about clicking their names. So yeah, kind of a dead range other than the few I mentioned.
All right, I'll let you take it into the 7K range then. Who are you looking at as we get into there?
All right, at the top, love Bazudenhout. I think he's made 35 of his last 37 cuts worldwide, the highest cut rate of anyone in the field over the last 18 months. So you got to think he's got a pretty high floor. Anytime you take him off of driver-heavy courses, he tends to play well. Great short game, great putter. He's never played here before, but I'm not too worried about that. I like Hadwin a little bit too. Looks like he's going to be popular though. Coming off of that great Monday finish at the Players, he's won here before. I think, that's naturally just going to inflate ownership a bunch. So, yeah, I'm just looking at ownership for the first time. So apologies for that. Moving down, I like Jonathan Vegas, guy that's very good off the tee. Missed a cut last week, but he was a 4 under, I think, before he got to 17. And I think he ranked 3 in his second round or something like that, and then ended up missing the cut. So I'll go back to him. He's a guy that very good with his irons, especially the long irons, and he's second in this field in greens and regulation over the last 8 months. So those are the 3 I like between 75 and 8,000.
Yeah, Bazudenhout is the first guy that stood out to me too, if you look at the recent numbers. Brian, who are you looking at in here?
I really like Martin Laird in this range. He's been playing some good golf. So over the past 24 rounds, first in good drives gained, third in proximity from 200 yards, 13th in strokes gained approach. For $7,200, I really like that to round out your lineup again, starting in the 9s, kind of being your lowest price guy. So I really like that. And I also like Svensson. He was very popular at the Honda, and everyone was like, why is this guy Svensson super chalky? And, it turned out really great. Excellent tee to green, just couldn't buy a putt. And I think that can turn around this week. So I think that for a lot of the same reasons that people liked him at the Honda, you can do the same this week. So I really like Svensson and Martin Laird in the 7s this week.
Svensson, another guy who's done a nice troll job with me over the last few months. I've been on him at the wrong times as well. But yeah, I think he's an intriguing play here too. We've seen some of the Canadians show some life here lately. Pender's had a couple good tournaments. Noto, you got any other thoughts here on kind of the mid to lower 7K range?
Yeah, I like Matthias Schwab. He's been playing really well. He's 7th at the Honda and then 7th at the Puerto Rico. So back-to-back 7th-place finishes. He's never played here before, but pretty good stats across the board. Really good ball striker on the European Tour. And then I wanted to get your guys' take on Mito because I think he's going to be super popular at 7,200. The ball striking numbers haven't been as good over the last 8 events. I'm torn on what to do with him.
I'm not really sure because last week everyone was talking up how owned Mito would be, and it didn't turn out that way. He was like 7% owned. He wasn't that highly owned. He obviously is going to rate out really well in a stat model for you, but I think that last year everyone was playing Sam Burns, and then they gave up on him, even though the stats were telling you something, and then he goes out and wins here. So I don't think you should give up on Mito that just yet. And I don't think he'll have as high ownership as you think, given his recent results and the fact that he's missed a lot of cuts being a very popular play.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get to 13, Noto. I think he'll end up like 9. I don't know. It seems like this is the spot where people are just going to start to lay off of him a little bit. I mean, it's not like he stands out above a lot of others like Kazire and Laird, and they've all kind of got similar odds. Griffin is like 140 to 1 and Mito's 150. So, and you got Harmon and Vegas and, Griffin and McCarthy always gets a little bit of ownership. I don't think Mito's going to be chalk here. I mean, I think he's fine. If the ownership is what's scaring you, I agree with Brian. I don't think I'd be too worried about it.
I was hoping he was going to be high though, so I could fade him. So now I got to play him, I guess.
Now you're back to square one. Do you like any of those other guys? Who does the model like any of those other guys I kind of mentioned? The McCarthys, the Griffins, the guys that we've got around 10% there?
The model loves Mito, and that's pretty much it in this range.
Maybe Joel Damon's going to come out blazing after the being involved in the rules controversy. 7,100.
Yeah, I don't mind him. Good ball striker. Not the worst putter on Bermuda. Pretty bad around the greens, but just another one of those guys you kind of take your chances and hope he hits 80% of the greens.
Yeah, I'll probably play him a little bit. I mean, as we mentioned, once we get into the 6Ks, it gets a little quite dicey. So, I don't mind sprinkling in a lot of these lower end 7K options as kind of the ways to round out your player pool a little bit. And depending on projected ownership cleanup, it's a week that's tough to get a gauge on where things are going to fall this week, simply because everything's a day behind with nothing coming out until Tuesday. So going to be a lot of moving parts this week, particularly if there ends up being another couple of withdrawals that end up shaking things up. So Brian, anything else above 7,000 that interests you?
I think that's really it for me, but I kind of agree with you on Damon. I mean, he played well last week, and I think he's a lot more talented than his price that he's at this week. And especially being around guys like Danny Willett, Brendan Todd, Scott Stallings, like I'm willing to take a chance on Damon over those guys. I think he has a lot more upside than a lot of the guys he's priced around.
Yeah, I agree. I think at that salary, he's definitely worth a peek. So, Noto, anything else for you? Otherwise, we can start to talk some values here.
One other name, Patton Kazire, really good birdie maker. I think he's 11th in the field and birdie or better over the last 14 months. So since the start of 2021. So if you want a guy that can outscore his finishing position, I think he's interesting. And then in the 6Ks, I mean, I have two guys that I even feel remotely comfortable putting in my lineups, and it looks like they're going to be the most popular two in the 6Ks, which is never a good sign. Troy Merritt was the first one. Similar to Tringali in that he misses a lot of cuts and he posts a lot of high finishes. That's typically what I'm looking for down here. I used to kind of go the safe route, just you want to cut down here, but if you're playing large field tournaments, a cut in the T50 doesn't really do you anything. So I like Merritt, and then I like Pat Perez. T29 here last year. The numbers are pretty solid across the board. Doesn't really have a big weakness other than lack of distance, and that's not going to be a problem this week.
Hey, those were the two values I put in my article before I even saw any projected ownership. I wasn't sure whether you're going to give me those two or you're going to give me Vaughn Taylor. I've seen a little Vaughn Taylor buzz on the Twitter today, but
he's not on the Champions Tour yet.
He probably is. No interest in Taylor for me. But Brian, you got any dart throws down here?
So I have one of the best DFS play of my life. I'll save it. But I do like Vaughn Taylor. Taylor in the 6s. 4 straight made cuts, 42nd at Sony, 28th at Pebble, 55th at Honda, 7th at Puerto Rico. So he's playing well. And then this is the greatest DFS play in the history of DraftKings. Min priced Martin Trainer. Okay. Hear me out. I love Martin Trainer this week at 6K flat. He has been, the joke with him is that he doesn't make cuts. He made the cut at Waste Management, and then he made the cut at the Honda. So he's trending a little bit. He's doing what he normally doesn't do. And then his best performance when everyone was like, who is this guy, was at Houston, another tough Bermuda track. So I'm not going to put him in a lot of lineups, but I don't think he should be min price. I don't think he should be at the same price as Alex Fitzpatrick and a lot of these other guys. So I really like him. And my local book is throwing some unbelievable. He's 1,000 to 1, 66 to 1 for a top 10, 33 to 1 for a top 20. Those are egregious odds. Martin Trainer will make the cut this week. Absolute guarantee from me. 6K flat, play it every single day of the week.
We're going to hold you to this one.
Absolutely. I am putting my whole reputation on the line for Martin Trainer to make a cut, which is a great thing to do. It's never gone wrong, and I'm excited to see how it turns out.
What's his made cut odds?
I don't know. That was probably the safest way to go about it, but I am going for a 66 to 1 top 10 and like 1,000 to 1. Like, that is egregious. He almost won the Houston a few months ago.
Looks like he does have a win in Puerto Rico a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's his claim to fame. That he won the Puerto Rico and then missed every single cut. But he's percolating. He's trending. Martin Trainer will make a cut this week.
Well, that includes a miscut at the Puerto Rico in his last start. But other than that, yes, the 2 made cuts in a row. Hey, it's always fun to throw the bold pick out there because, as I like to say, if it doesn't work out, then, well, duh. I mean, it was just an off the wall pick. Yeah. But if it works out, you've got the audio clip, you've got the footage, you've got everything. And, we can go full tout life and promote it. So, all right, Martin Trainer at 6K, the bold call of the week from Brian. There's not a whole lot in the 6,000s to get super excited about. So glad to see the bold take there. Noto and I are being boring with the popular plays down here with Merritt and Perez. But Noto, any last parting thoughts on some of these value plays? Anybody we missed?
I mean, I'm doing my best, but I can't find much of anything. Guys that rate out as okay plays: Cam Percy is 61. Andrew Putnam is 66, Roger Sloan, who was pretty good at one point last year, but they all have massive red flags. So just go all in on Martin Trainer.
There you go. All right, you heard it here first then. And with that, we can probably tie a bow around the show and call it a week here. So I'd like to thank Eli for producing behind the scenes for us and hanging out late on a Tuesday night at the office. We appreciate that. Thanks to Brian for joining us as our special guest third host this week. Always nice to have third host to bounce some things off of. And thanks, of course, to Noto for joining as well. Let's see. Next week is the weird week on the schedule with the match play. Yep. And the Punta Cana, which I think the match play has kind of taken over the DFS spectrum the last few years. With kind of a unique format of contests that DraftKings started offering. I know it's probably been 3 or 4 years now, but so we'll have to see what gets put out for contests next week, and we'll be back with whatever tournament ends up being the primary, most likely that match play event next week. So it's always good, interesting discussion, different roster constructions, different dynamics, just a different way of thinking about roster building than what we're used to. So with that, we'll get out of here. For Eli, for Noto, for Brian, I'm Justin. Thanks as always for watching, everybody. We appreciate it, and we will catch you later.